The phrase "too killing for anything," which Allie used in her diary, interested me enough to continue looking through slang, especially that term, and I found it again in the Michigan Argonaut, the student newspaper of the University of Michigan. This is from Volume 2, October 1883 to June 28th, 1884. And the story is My Chum, some scenes from his life. And My Chum is a pseudonym for this writer. I have a very peculiar chum. I have had him ever since he was a freshman. His name is John Smith of Smithville, Iowa. His chummery has been of such an engrossing kind that I cannot refrain from committing to paper a few scenes from his eventful life. The first one I select is an adventure of his during the summer immediately following his freshman year. Scene: a yard to a pretty cottage. 2 trees in center of stage about 10 feet apart. Time: twilight. Enter John Smith, a maiden fair, and a hammock. John ties up the hammock, assists maiden fair to seat in it, and takes a position by her side. Maiden fair coos forth, "Oh, Jack, isn't it awfully nice here?" John Smith impressively. "Well, I should gurgle to mutter." Maiden fair startled. "What did you say?" John Smith. "I only said smile to murmur, as we say it in Ann Arbor." Maiden fair still under a slight fog. "Oh." Silence reigns for several seconds. Maiden fair, "Doesn't the moon look just too lovely tonight?" John Smith. "Well, don't allow it to elude your memory." Maiden fair. "What does that mean?" John Smith condescendingly. "That is the way we say 'don't you forget it' in Ann Arbor." Maiden fair, rejoiced at recognizing some familiar slang. "Isn't that too killing?" J.S. John Smith, thinking to cap the climax. "By the hirsute appendage of Jove, O maiden fair, 'tis at the university we learn to manipulate the American language, and in mellifluous syllables express the marvelous thoughts and subtle intellects." Maiden fair, evidently awestruck, but disturbed by a vague notion that he is swearing. "You shouldn't talk so in the presence of ladies, Jack." John Smith, somewhat perturbed. "There isn't anything bad in that, matey fairy. Everybody talks so in Ann Arbor." Maiden fair, changing the subject. "Oh, Jack, teach me some college songs." Jack proceeds to initiate her to the mysteries of uppity, bulldog, last cigar, etc. This charming occupation lasts some time until MF suddenly inquires, "Have you seen Susan Jones since her return from Vassar?" JS hadn't. MF, "She is awfully stuck up and thinks she knows everything. I don't like her anymore." JS, with some empressement, "We think the higher education of women is a success at Ann Arbor. The co-eds are all good students and nice girls." MF, mystified, "What is a co-ed?" JS, "Lady student." MF, "What do you call them co-heads for? Or did you say toe-heads?" JS explains and makes various laudatory statements. MF, "I suppose you think girls who don't go to college aren't of as much account as those that do. But let me draw the veil here before the entire collapse of JS. In his susceptible stage, i.e. in his junior year, John Smith was the softest of chums. Some of the flirtatious young ladies of the city assisted in giving him the idea that he was an irresistible lady killer. He took to writing amatory poetry, reading novels, and inditing billets, billets-doux. One day as I was busily boning, what? There's a slang we don't say anymore. One day as I was busily boning, he struck a beautiful attitude and delivered the following eloquent oration. "Chum, the home is the fitting symbol of heaven on earth. What is more beautiful to contemplate than a lovely and loving woman, moving within the circle of her domestic duties and smoothing her dainty hand the careworn brow of her husband? How entrancing is the thought of the affectionate greeting when he returns from the trials of business to his own hearth, leaving behind him care, vexation, weariness, to find peace, affection, rest. What is more?" Here Webster's unabridged took him in the small of the back, and he subsided. Not many evenings after the above incident, it happened to be a calm, still evening in June. The placid Huron lies glistening in the silver radiance of the moon, while far and near are heard the mellowed voices of the songsters of the night. A single spot of darkness not far from shore might have been discerned in the midst of the brightness. Let us approach it. As we draw near, the outlines of a boat appear, and two occupants are distinguishable ensconced upon the middle seat. But look, a sudden start, a rocking, a splash, and the boat floats empty and inverted down the stream. That splash has sent a shock through all nature. Can it be we have witnessed a plunge from time into eternity? The moon shines with a paler light. The frogs have ceased to chant. The evening dew sends a shivering chill unfelt before. To the marrow of our bones. At last the moonbeams break asunder and roll away in fragments from a single spot, allowing two heads to appear above the surface of the river. And wading forth comes John Smith, and one of those, maidens flirtatious mentioned in the second scene. The frogs gave a joyful flourish and then suspended their notes to listen to the sound of the voice that breaks the silence. What a horrid shame this is, Jack. A pause and another flourish from the frogs. I don't see how it happened, I'm sure. I should think you were clasping me enough to have kept me from falling out. But we must leave the dripping couple to the Huron and the frogs. John Smith is now a changed man, much to the inward satisfaction of his chum. It's pretty much a throwaway story, but the mention of "isn't that too killing" was strangely used by the girl from Iowa. Or was John Smith from Iowa? Let me refresh. Yeah, John Smith of Iowa. All right, so the maiden fair was presumably regional to Michigan. All right, just thought I'd interject that the slang of the day, sans boner, was pretty much standard fare, although today's is somewhat distinguishably dumber.